Let me share the screen. So so last time we end where let's see where's that. So the Buddha say, right, when the Buddha asked about the impermanence of the body and the king recognize us, and the Buddha mentioned that the body is full of flesh and blood, but is this permanent and indestructible like diamond? So the king say no, but the Buddha say that you have not died yet. How could you know? Your body be destroyed, right? So he recognized as everything is changing. Yeah. So here, okay, let's see. Uh, oh, okay. So, yeah. So we stop here, right? Yeah. Okay, let me read then. Uh, so the Buddha asked, "You have not yet died. How do you know that your body will be destroyed?" I can reply with onwards. So my impermanence, changing and decaying body is not yet dead. I observe that it changes and decay without a moment's pause, and is bound to go out like fire that gradually burn out and will be reduced to naught. So he recognized that sooner or later we have to go, right? Peacefully. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, I think we passed this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Pass this one. Oh, okay. Or this part here. The Buddha say, "Great king, you observe this ceaseless change and know that you will die. But do you know that when you do this, that which is in your body and does not die?" So here the part we stop. We discuss that the switch, right, from observing everything is impermanent, from uh, non-self to the permanent and to the true self, right? That's kind of switch uh, uh, from the Theravada views to the Mahayana one, right? In the Theravada tradition, they would not talk about that permanent Buddha nature or the true self. Or in the teaching of Pali's Canyon, there's no. I have not seen that yet. That's a switch. That's the jump, right? That's the jump from Theravada to Mahayana. That's the difference then. Mm, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, please. Hi, Ivan. How you been, Ivan? Can you hear me, Ivan?
I can hear you, Ty. I've been good.
Yeah.
This
Are you at home
week
now?
has already.
Are you at home now, or you at work?
I am at home now. I'm just getting home.
Oh, sure. Okay, so take time. Right. Yeah, please,
Yes.
William, you can do this one.
The king brought his two palms together and said, "I really do not know." The Buddha continued, "I will show you the self-nature which is beyond birth and death. Great king, how old were you when you first saw the Ganges?" The king replied, "When I was 3, my mother took me to worship the Deva Jiva. As we crossed the river, I knew it was the Ganges." The Buddha asked, "Great king, as you just said, you were older at 20 than at 10, and until you were 60, as days, months, and years succeeded one another, your body changed in every moment of thought. When you saw the Ganges at 3, was its water the same as it was when you were 13? The king replied, "It was the same when I was 3 and 13, and still is now that I am 62.
Okay. Yeah.
So the Buddha is pointing towards the seeing nature that it's not changing. That the king's awareness of the Ganges River remains the same. Is that, or that's what I where I think the Buddha is going with it.
Yeah. Whether he was 10, 20, or 60, right? So here the Buddha focused on what we call see nature. So the age is changing, the body is changing, but the seeing nature is not changing. So through the eyes, right, we have that kind of see nature. Later on, he will ask one monk to hit the bell, and through the ears, we have to hear the nature. Ivan, you follow, right, Ivan?
I do follow, Ty.
Okay, thank you. So how about William? What do you think about, let's say, the tasting nature or the touching nature? What do you think? With relate to our five sense.
Yeah, that it's. I mean, it's similar to seeing and hearing, tasting and touching. That there's an awareness of things that we're able to differentiate. I mean, the awareness can be just what it is, but then we can, we can differentiate different qualities in our taste. We can differentiate different qualities in our feeling, whether it's smooth or rough, slimy or soft. Just like when we're looking, we can see if something has sharp edges or round edges. But then the nature itself of that sort of that awareness seems pretty similar between the different senses. It's just what we're aware of is of a different quality.
About the tasting, what's the difference between the dissemination of the taste or the awareness of the taste?
Oh, the awareness of it would have no judgment, that it wouldn't be relative to preference. Yeah. So that we wouldn't consider whether it tastes good or bad. It would just be like just as it is. But then the discrimination about it, the thinking about it would be, do I like this or do I not like this?
Yeah. So it work with our five sense, right? Whether it's seeing, right? Yeah, if as long as we have discrimination, we fall into suffering then into the mind of good or bad, lies or dislike, right? Uh, so there's others, right? So that's why it's so important. Here, we would illustrate when the king was 10 or 20 or even now 60, this scene is still the same. That the sin nature, not the disseminated sin, right? You follow, Ivan?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you please read the next one, please? Right here. Yeah, the Buddha said.
The Buddha said, as you now notice your white hair and wrinkled face, there must be many more wrinkles than when you were a child. Today, when you see the Ganges, do you notice that your seeing is old now while it was young then? The king replied, it has always been the same, world honored one.
Okay. Yeah, you can finish this one. This is similar. This is continue.
The Buddha said, great king, though your face is wrinkled, the nature of your essence of your seeing is not. Therefore, that which is wrinkled changes, and that which is free from wrinkles is unchanging. The changing is subject to destruction, whereas the unchanging fundamentally is beyond birth and death. How can it be subject to your birth and death? Why do you bring out mascara? I don't know. Wrong teachings on total annihilation at the end of this life.
Okay. Yeah, could you summarize, please? This is the top one.
Yeah, the king ultimately is seeing the world as if he'd seen it the first time with unchanging eyes, even though his eyes have traveled through time with him. And then the Buddha's asking, making a comment about how he's seeing it, with no change, no difference. The changing is subject to destruction, whereas the unchanging fundamentally is beyond birth and death. How can it be subject to your birth and death? I think he's asking a question of like, how do you notice change? How do you identify change? And are you identifying change, or do people identify change based on their lifespan, their perspective of lifespan, in comparison to viewing the world in cycles? And if you see the entirety of the cycle, then is there truly change, or it's just part of the cycle? There is no change, it just is.
Okay, William, what do you think about this process?
That where the Buddha used the analogy of the king seeing the river, and that his the seeing nature, that that's seeing the river doesn't change. So even though like his body ages and gets wrinkles, the seeing nature doesn't show signs of change or age. So that is not subject to destruction because it's not changing, and so it's it's beyond birth and death.
So he asked the king, why do you bring out one of the others religious leaders view about total annihilation, right? That's mean when someone passes away, everything is done, right? Yeah. So, what do you think? Is it easy for common people to recognize this type of see nature, hear nature, taste nature, or touch nature? What do you think?
This is a very common, like the common first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, last step in Zen Buddhism, of just continually coming back to that nature. And I think what makes it difficult is thinking. So, like Huineng was an uneducated person who like cut wood and took care of his grandmother, never got to go to school. But with hearing that the teaching, I think it was from the Diamond Sutra, like saw his nature and realized enlightenment. So, and there's this idea of like, it's not easy or hard. Sometimes enlightenment can be gradual or it can be instant, and it really depends upon the mind of the person. So it certainly can, I think it can appear hard, or it could appear easy. But I think in my experience, presencing this idea to people, generally it creates a lot of thinking. And so it's hard to bring it forth in such a way that doesn't result in a lot of thinking and debate, and then requiring a lot more explanation. And then it end up never actually hitting the mark. So in my practice of approaching this idea with people, yeah, I think it is. I think I could say that my experience is that it appears difficult for people to grasp that.
Mhm. And actually, it just short of habitual patterns. Since we was born up to now, we were trained and taught that we need to recognize duality, right? Good, bad, happy, unhappy, that is like man, woman, so forth and so forth. It's not easy for us to remain in neutral route, right? Of course, when we work for government, most of the time they have policies that we're not supposed to discriminate anyone else. But we build up our habitual patterns so many years, and the one that lives around us or around us, we do the same way too. It'd be odd if we do in the different ways. That's why I think I discussed before too. We talk about the MBCT and CBT, right? Uh, or the ACT. ACT, yes, CBT. You follow me that, right? We talk about that, right? So for
Yes.
ACT, we can accept what's good about, we can accept that. But for CBT, you need to change from negative to positive. And now people recognize us as much as we accept what is good about. It's easy for us to let go of thought than to accept one and reject other, to like one and dislike others. Whenever we fall in the trap of duality, that's where suffering comes from. That's where conflict comes from. That's where problem comes from. But if we go beyond like dislike, if we can accept that, everything will be more peaceful. From here, come back here. That this kind of idea probably for the average people, right? There's no way for them to accept that. There's no way for them to accept, oh, you have human nature, you have see nature, you have taste nature, and so forth. So they say, so what? I get used of this money. Otherwise, I would not enjoy my food. Is that right? I say that our my favorite food. I would not say that my favorite art. I would not say that my favorite music. If everyone goes that direction, right? So there's no favorite anymore, no favorite food, no favorite music, no favorite art, no favorite bed, and so forth. And not easy because we've been in this kind of habitual pattern for so many, not only this lifetime, but in so many limitless past life already. We embed in this kind of habitual pattern already. It's not easy to get out. It's not easy to change our paradigms, our views. But not talking about the average people, right? They if they don't understand anything about Buddhism, they don't understand about the Zen tradition. Yeah, forget that. Yeah. So oh, okay. So let me tell you a story of a Zen master. So one day, a Zen master walked on the field with his student. So somehow his student, while he was walking with his master, and somehow he saw um, uh, a flock of birds on the air, right? He could call the master. Oh, master, there's flock of birds up there. So what happened then? So the master turned around and used palms, I mean fingers, to pour the nose of the student. And at that time, the student cried and say that, how could you hurt me? How could you pour my nose? It's so hurtful. Right? It's so painful. So, but the master didn't respond anything. But when he went back to the monastery, and somehow the master convened the assembly, all the monks come together, and particularly he called that student up, and that student came up. He was crying and he was laughing. You know that story, William?
No, it's my first hearing it.
Okay. Ivan, you follow? You follow
I
this?
do follow. That's the first time I've heard.
Really? Okay.
Well,
So William, you know why the student he was crying and he was laughing at the same time? You know why?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure. What my mind thinks about is maybe the master was the nose pulling was an analogy. There was analogous to the student's labeling. So the student wanted to label like, oh, look, the birds, as opposed to simply like being present with what was without some sort of differentiation about it. And it would kind of like if you were kind of getting someone else to like see this label, relate to this way, it'd be kind of like pulling someone's nose. Like it's for someone in that state, it wouldn't there wouldn't be any pleasantness to that sort of, come into the thinking mind and see if those as but I'm not sure. That's just where my mind.
Okay,
Okay.
Ivan, you understand? You understand why the student was laughing and crying at the same time after that incident? You know why?
I don't know why.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, go ahead.
The yeah, like William was saying, the idea of perception, but also too, like, I guess from perception of storytelling, someone crying really hard where they're like crying silently almost looks like laughter, and laughter at a certain level begets crying because you're crying, laughing so hard you cry. Like the perception or personification of emotion is separate, I guess, from those experiencing it. I don't know.
That's why I love Zen story. There's a lot of meaning. It's so meaningful there. So basically, right, when the student point out to the empty space up there, to the sky, there was a flock of birds there. So the master turned around and pulled his nose, right? Of course, it's painful. That's why he cried, right? But why he laughed. The laughing is the master remind him, don't look outside there. You need to take care of your nose. You need to take care of your air. You need to be patient. You need to be here, be present right here. Instead, look over there. So in Buddhism, it's always reminds us that we need to look within, to be here with the present moment, instead to be there. Make sense now? That's why he recognized that principle. Of course, because the master pulled the nose, so that's why it's so painful. That's why he cried. The reason he laughed because he recognized that principle. Recognize the principle. You need to look within. You need to be here, because the nose is where you can recognize the air that exchange in and out of your body, and the air or the breath is the source of your life. You need to recognize, you need to be aware of that, instead of to look out there externally. So this kind of teaching is illustrate these embodiments of the whole Buddha teaching, that we're not supposed to look without, and we're supposed to look within ourselves. Otherwise, we get lost ourselves there. Usually, right, during our normal activities, we look without, right? We concerned about the car, we concerned about the food, we concerned about our bed, and so forth and so forth. But we don't concern about our breath. We don't concern much about the present moment of our life through the breath. That's why after this incident, the student recognized his master teaching through pulling the nose. That's simple. It's so simple, but this is so profound. William, you got that now, right?
Yes, sir.
Ivan, you understand? You follow, right? Yeah, that's why I love the Zen story. It's so profound. If we don't understand, it's weird. Uh, Otherwise, it could waste of time. Yeah. Anyway, so now come back to ourselves. What do you think? We know that through the eyes we have seen nature, through the ear we have hear nature, and so forth. Through this type of five sense. So is that easy for us to apply, William, in our life to recognize those nature? Actually, that's the uh, the functional transformation of our pure mind, our pure mind, a pure nature that's manifested through our five sense. Is that easy for us to remind ourselves to be aware of those type of remember that type of pure awareness?
That it seems it's the reminding is simple, but I don't think it's easy. I think it takes I mean it takes mindfulness, it takes practice, and a lot of forgetting will happen. I think just like when we meditate, I'll sit down to meditate, and you know be distracted for a while until like awareness just comes back of itself, and then I can reorient. So I think the same thing happens when we're going about our days. We can certainly be aware to be mindful in the moment, but then we may get caught up in whatever we're doing and may forget about it for a while. So I mean, it seems for most of us that it's a gradual process that we have to cultivate over time.
This is like we blow the balloon, right, with the air, right? And balloon expand a little bit, and we release the air out and come back. Does that make sense, right? So we get used of follow other people patterns. We get used of discrimination. We get used of analytical thinking, good, bad. We get used stay in that war, the war of duality, the war of convention, right? Good, bad, black, white, like, dislike, and favor or unfavor, and so forth. It's not easy for us to get out or go beyond that kind of duality. That's why we're still here. But why we why we do meditation? If if you have that type of meditative experience, somehow that meditation help us to go beyond. When we focus on the breath and whatever, right? At that moment, the moment that we do meditation, it helps us to go beyond duality because we just focus on our breath. We just follow with the flow of the breath. There's no discrimination. There's no judgment. There's no favor. There's no good or bad, so forth. So we have that moment. We train our mind to have that moment with our breath, with our concentration, with our mindfulness at that moment. But when we're done, we go back, we jump back to the old realm. And that's why we're still here. That's why we stuck here. But for exam master, yes, the up when we're doing meditation, they stay with that kind of unbiased mind, non-judgmental mind. But after they're done with meditation, they carry on that energy. They carry on that views of life. That's they live with that kind of present moment. They live with that kind of pure nature. For them, it's so at ease, so easy for them. But for us, because we jump back and forth and we go nowhere. It's like we climb up 2 steps and we fall 2 steps up and down, get the same same place. Because this is so many lifetime, we get used to that. It's not easy. So Ivan, you follow, right? It's not easy, right? And what do you think, William? Is that practical? If it's not easy for us to do, is that practical or impractical? This kind of idea, the idea of the pure
Yeah.
mind that would be manifested through our five senses.
Yeah. Well, there's not really, I mean, that's the way. Like, there's not another option. The other option is suffering. So gradually, gradual transformation, or just persisting in suffering and going, going with wherever desire takes us and aversion takes us. So I think it is practical, like, because if we're sometimes suffering can remind us of the practice. Sometimes something can just be hurting so bad, and we want to escape from it, and so it can remind us of the practice to become present and accept it and turn to the seeing nature of, okay, well, what is being seen is unpleasant, or what's being felt is unpleasant, but the feeling's the same, like the feeling nature is the same. And then staying with that, it can, that can in itself be a really strong impetus for practice. So I do think it's practical, because whether we're experiencing something positive or negative, we can apply it, because we can remember, like, okay, I'm experiencing this positive thing, which I really enjoy, but it's going to be gone. And later, whether I intend to or not, I'm going to, feel a little bad because I felt good now and I'm not feeling that good later. So we can recall to be mindful of seeing, like, turning attention to the seeing nature, as opposed to holding on to the idea of something being better or worse, pleasant or unpleasant. So I think it's a really good medicine. I do think it's practical.
Yeah. And again, in psychology, they pick up this type of principle from Buddhism. That's why we talk about ACT and CBT there. If we want to transform our stress, anxiety, and so forth, we have to apply that type of non-duality. We have to go beyond duality, right? And I'm glad up to now they have done this all kind of research that uh, prove as much we apply this type of principle, non-duality principle, we'll be safe. No more stress, no more anxiety, right? Because we can eat and we recognize the flavor, whether it's good or bad, we just consume. Whether it's, the art is beautiful or ugly, we just see. Whether good music, bad music, favor or unfavor, we just still hear. Am I even now, right? Am I so at peace? Am I so calm because of this kind of principle? Otherwise, it's not easy. And I think eventually people will recognize us. And of course, hmm, like if we still live in this type of samsara, secular life, somehow people don't expect us to have that type of equal mind, to have that type of unbiased mind. They always expect us that, oh, you need to give comment whether you like or not, right? Whether you um, follow that, accept that form or not. So in a sense, for the secular life, it's not easy. But for example, let's say in your case, if you uh, get the comment from your patient, right? Whether it's good or bad, especially the bad one, right? And if you say, okay, I understand. What do you think? Is it applicable when someone gives you bad comment about your service? It's easy for you to go beyond that, and or you have to check it out. What do you think? In the context of this one, in the context of the
Yeah.
awareness.
No, I don't think it's my like my thinking mind's natural inclination to just let it be as it is. I'll have it'll hurt if I get a bad comment. I did something wrong, and it hurts. It doesn't mean nothing. And if I get a good comment, if someone says I did really well, then yeah, it feels good, and I'm happy about it, and it informs my behavior. I try to avoid the things that are going to get me bad comments. Try to do the things that are going to get me good comments. Within reason. Like I still have to be governed by a higher principle of helping. But generally, given I'm not like an Instagram influencer, an Instagram influencer, their reward, they're going to get more attention for different things. They're going to get more praise for different things than I would. I mean, I'll get praise for properly helping, and properly helping is like, I think if my mind is clear and I'm present, like that's a natural result, that the person gets a positive result. Sometimes they still don't, and I can't help that. Or other times, maybe I could have helped it. Maybe if I was more present, I would have been able to be part of them getting a better result. Whether I feel like I was partially responsible or it was beyond my control, it still feels bad because they got a bad result. And I can let it go, but it
So you cut off, sorry, somehow.
oh
We lost at the last part.
yeah, I was saying I can, if I get a bad comment, I can let it go, but it takes something to do that.
Okay. So, in this ICT, I discussed with my student this morning, what's my self-context and self-content. Ivan, do you understand the difference? What's the difference between self-context and self-content?
Self-context is myself in situation. I am present in an argument. Self-content is inside myself. I am embodying the anger from that argument.
About self-context, what's the difference then? The first one.
Context.
Yeah.
Context is in the situation. Like I am participating in an argument versus content is embodying or having.
Okay.
Yes? No?
Have we discussed about this before, William?
Yes, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I think I understand it properly. I think self as context is that the whole situation, the whole experience, every phenomena present, that is like the phenomena itself, the summation of phenomena, seeing the self as that I'm not a small part within this, but that it's the space in which this whole thing is happening. Basically, like self is not a form, but the space in which all forms appear. And then self as content would be, okay, I'm identifying with something within the field of awareness. I'm saying, okay, this body, these past actions, this result that is caused by those past actions, self is the thing that's responsible for those things.
Mm. So in your case, in my case, let's say in my case, some of my students may give me bad comment, right? Any one of us, so if they can give us a bad comment, right, about our profession, about our job and our work and so forth, right? So if we take things for we attaching for personal, right? I'm so angry. How could they say that to me? They're my student. They're my patient. How could they say those things to me? That's a self-content. We we take we take those criticism as personal. We don't separate our personality characteristics and so forth with that type of problem, right? So that's why in self-context is reminds that we need to be observer to step out of that kind of attachment. We discussed about that, William, right? So that we don't take things for personal. Yes, probably I may give them a wrong grade. I may grade them wrongly, but that type of mistake would not speak out my personality, right? So not because of one mistake or two mistakes that I'm a bad professor, right? So I need to be observant, to step out of that content, to step out that type of identification that we attach things at the content, not ourselves. Ivan, you follow Ivan? You follow this kind of thing? Self
I do
content, self
follow.
content, huh?
I do follow.
Yeah. So that's why I go back here. That's why I go back here with the self awareness, right? That we are aware of mistake, we are aware of those criticism, but we don't take them for personal, as personal. We make mistake, but we would not speak our personality. But otherwise, we so angry, and we say that how could you dare to say this word to me? That's what we have. That's what we identify ourselves with the phenomena. We identify ourselves with everything we do wrong or we do right. That's why self context help us to go beyond right and wrong. That's one of the what you call the process, one of the six process in ACT. And they apply this is Buddhist philosophy, and no other philosophy that could speak up this type of principle. Only Buddhism could help us to go beyond good and bad. So when we go beyond good and bad, am I more peaceful? That's why, yes, in Hinduism, they do the practice meditation. They do what called TM. You know, right, William? The transcendental meditation. But they still attached to that type of form of life, that form of practice. That's why they get stuck. It's not easy to deal with stress, anxiety, because as much as we identify ourselves, I'm angry, it's different from I know I'm angry. Ivan, you follow? You know the difference between when we say I'm angry, that's one term, right? Another term is I know I'm angry. Do you understand the difference, Ivan?
Yeah, one's context. I am experiencing anger opposed to I have anger or I am angry.
Yeah.
I
One
am
is
is projecting self into it versus I am experiencing or I understand this feeling is context. It's
I'm
you.
aware of. I'm aware
Yeah,
of. Right. I'm
I am
aware
aware
that
of. I am.
I'm angry. It's different from say I'm
Projecting.
angry, right? So we identify ourselves with the feeling. That's what we call self-content. When I'm angry, when I'm depressed, when I'm so anxious, so that's what self-content there. We identify ourselves with those feelings. But self-content, yes, I'm recognized that I have anger, I recognize I have anxiety. So in this case, ICT, they encourage the patient to use that. So what do you think, William? Is it easy to apply for the patient, or what do you think?
Yeah, generally, anger comes up during periods of like lack of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if it's once it's already bloomed, anger, like it takes effort, because it's so it can be very difficult in the heat of anger to not identify with the story around the anger.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, it's still, if we know in our minds clear enough, if we know that, okay, I can, you know, understand that I can become angry, but I can't justify acting out of anger, maintaining anger, defending my anger. If I can like know that, then we can like then see it more like the weather, as opposed to like, I'm behind this, this is right, I should be angry. We can see it more like, okay, this anger is the result of my false thinking. And by disempowering it, it's going to not grow out into something bigger. But even better is to like be mindful in the moment, so that train of anger as it leaves the station, just not getting on it. But it's like the full commitment to that way of thinking of no preference. I think there's so many thoughts in the moment, if someone's, you know, thinking about not getting on to that train of anger, about what that can mean, when like it really doesn't mean anything. It just is. But there can be all these thoughts about, well, what if in every situation I do that? Well, what if I don't, you know, defend this now? It's going to be worse later. So there, it can be very compelling, in my experience, in the world of thinking, to try to, as opposed to like letting go and just letting things be as they are without any resistance to them. It's very tempting to jump in and try to establish this sort of like agreements and situation that I think are appropriate. Like, well, things should be this way, you know, but it never works from a place of anger. It is the real thing, is in the moment that there's a possibility of anger, it's like there is no foothold. It's like trying to climb up a hill made of sand. So the best thing I've found is, yeah, I have to abandon anger. I have to be calm. And then maybe from a calm state, if there's something to address, you know, maybe I can address it and get a change, but maybe I also just need to accept it and use it as a sort of spur to help me let go of preference, to let go of attachment, and practice equanimity. So it's definitely, I noticed that as a regular growing edge for me, that sort of dynamic.
Yeah, Ivan, what do you think?
I think, yeah, it's an interesting way to view the world and yourself within it. I guess the only other side of it that I would propose is, as you objectively view things as context versus content, right, and view the world in cycles and systems, then not to go so far that you disassociate from everything. Yes, this body is experiencing hunger, this mind is experiencing depression, but then disassociate from the world at large. I am participating in, but I do not belong to.
Not the belong to, but the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Get the awareness. So in the past we discussed the difference between pain, excuse me, pain and suffering, right? We remember that whether it's physical pain or mental pain, right? The pain and suffering. What's the difference between pain and suffering?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sufferings is avoidable. In practice, it may be difficult to avoid, but suffering's avoidable because it's our reaction to the situation.
Yeah.
So,
Stimulus.
but pain itself is it can be a pure awareness. It can be like kind of like cold. Like we can simply feel cold, or we can feel heat and not have distress about it. But as soon as our mind resists it, then suffering arises. Then there's, yeah.
We prolong the pain, right? We drag on the pain, right? That's called suffering. That's why I used to tell the story that there's one lady, she complained that among greet many people at the temple except her, and she still remember that type of resentment toward that monk, that because he didn't say hi to her.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So okay. Let me go back to the story so that can understand what's that. So a few years ago, I went to a temple in New Mexico, and while I was while we were teaching and talking, so one lady raised her hand and say, "You know what? I went back to Vietnam 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago. I went to see a temple. I went visit a temple over there, and on that particular day." So a monk or the head monk or the abbot, somehow he say goodbye to everyone because he went to somewhere else. But when he turned, when it's turned to me, he didn't say anything. I'm so angry. And she asked me, why did that monk do? Why did that monk have that attitude toward her? I said, I'm sorry, I don't know. So you understand that?
Yeah.
Her resentment toward that monk because he didn't say hi to her. He didn't say goodbye to her. That's why she still hold on her resentment about him because for her he didn't treat her well. He didn't treat her equally. He say hi, I say goodbye to other people except her, and that kind of suffering still linger for more than 4 years. She could not get go of that. So that's what we call suffering there. The moment, yes, the moment he didn't turn back to her to say hi or say goodbye, yes, it's hurt, it's painful for her. But if she let go, it would not be suffering at all. But if she prolong that kind of mental pain, right? Mental discomfort or dissatisfaction or frustration for more than 4 years, that's what we call suffering there. So that's why here we will talk about self-context versus self-content. If we don't take things for us personal, it's much easier for us to move on. Whether we do something that people are real or not, that's their choice, right? So that's more applicable. It's more practical. Yeah. So again, I'm so surprised that now those type of mindfulness-based theories utilize Buddhist principle, but they don't know. They don't know where it's come from. This kind of self-context and self-content, this kind of acceptance, this kind of awareness there. Mm, and somehow I feel that if people can apply that, they can overcome any kind of stress, anxiety, and so forth. There's many ways. For us, especially in this sutra, the Buddha said that whichever thing we have here, they're false. There's mental projection. There's mental manipulation, not your real self. Stick with your real self. Stick with your pure nature. Whether it's through your eye, through your nose, through your ear, and so forth, stick with that. You'll be safe. to be more peaceful. It's hard. It's hard. Ivan, what do you think? It's hard to apply, or what do you think?
I think like anything, it takes practice.
Mhm. Yeah, let's say in your case, in your profession, right? You check the quality of product. Could you
Yeah,
depend? Could it's easy for you to remain unbiased, non-judgmental attitude? Could you do
yeah.
that?
It's taken practice. Yeah. Um, like anything, it's been practiced. But more than anything, like I've seen it in my martial arts practice, right? You know, you do sometimes heavy training, heavy striking, sometimes lighter and flow, right? And you you collide with someone else's bones and it hurts, right? And the second you tense up in response to that pain, you suffer, right? Versus immediately release it and the pain goes away. You know, are you experiencing it in context of the training, or are you embodying the content of what's happening?
Mhm.
And yeah, I see it a lot in my martial arts practice and the movements of the work we do together.
Yeah. So, what do you think, William? Is this very applicable in your profession, right?
Yeah, I think it's very applicable. And like you said, I mean the patterns have just been practiced for so long to distinguish, to notice, and then you can there can already be all these thoughts that have grown out of some sort of awareness that can happen so quick, so that the practice of meditation, setting intention early on in the morning, and having ways to come back to and refresh it during the day, I think are really important because yeah, I agree. If we stay with that kind of undifferentiated awareness, not getting caught in the story, that we save ourselves so much trouble.
Mhm. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, let's start